Heritage in its entirety. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions. Question orale, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The accounting firm, M&P, reveals this week that roughly half of Canadians are less than $200 away from being able to pay their bills every month. This means almost bankruptcy for almost half of our population. That's the case after 7 years of inflationary policy from this government. What they're doing today, increasing taxes by tripling the carbon tax on gas and house heating. Will he cancel his plan to triple the tax? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, today I'd like to start with some good news. We have a solution that everyone is unanimous on in this House. It's the inflation tax relief. Yesterday, we unanimously voted in favor of this measure, and I hope that they will be able to vote this week for this necessary payment for Canadians. Thank you. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
MNP reported this week that almost half of Canadians are $200 from insolvency. That means that they're about to default on a debt or other legal payment. They can't afford groceries. 4 and 5 families have had to cut their diets to pay their bills, and 9 in 10 young people without a home say they'll never afford one. The Liberal solution to all this is to raise taxes on paychecks and on energy, including by tripling the carbon tax on gas, heat, and groceries. Will they cancel their plan to triple the tax?
Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government knows that many Canadians are struggling today with the cost of living, and we do have a Liberal solution. The GST tax credit that will give up to nearly $500 to Canadian families. 11 million households will be supported. And you know what else is good news, Mr. Speaker? That's not just a Liberal solution. That is a solution unanimously supported by all members of this House. I'm looking forward to that measure coming on 3rd reading to the House so we can get that support to Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Problem is, the government wants to tax it all away. In fact, they want to triple the carbon tax on gas, heat, and groceries. This at a time when Vancouver's gas prices hit $2.40 a litre. And we learned today that Ontario will soon have a 10-cent a litre sudden spike in gas prices. This is exactly the wrong time for a tax hike. Will the government cancel its plan to triple the tax?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've already spoken today about one part of our government's solution that now enjoys support from all members of this House, and that is the GST tax credit. And I'd like to take this opportunity to call on all members of this House to support the other 2 elements of our plan. The $500 payment, one-off payment, to help Canadians struggling to pay their rent. Surely that makes sense to everyone. And supporting Canadian kids to be able to go to the dentist. Who in this House thinks a child under 12 shouldn't go to the dentist just because their parents can't afford it? I hope we'll all support these wise measures.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
1,000 days ago today, the IRGC, a terrorist group, murdered 55 Canadian citizens. Yet, 1,000 days later, it is perfectly legal for that same terrorist organization to raise money, coordinate, plan, and act right here in Canada. Unbelievable. Why?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
unequivocally clear that we condemn the downing of PS 752. We stood with those families. We unequivocally condemn the brutal murder of Mahsa Amini, and we stand with her family and with all of the women who are marching for their rights, Mr. Speaker. I want to be clear that Canada will never be a safe haven for any IRGC operative, for anyone who supports terrorists. We have taken tangible, consequential action, and we will continue to deliver consequences so that we can stand up for human rights here and around the world.
That's the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
But Canada is a safe haven for this terrorist group, which killed 55 Canadian citizens by shooting down a civilian aircraft. The government has the legal authority today to list that group as a terrorist entity, banning it from raising money, operating, coordinating, or in other ways existing here in this country. 1,000 days after this murder of our citizens, they have not done so. Why?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would hope that all members are united in standing with the families of PS 752, which is what we did right from the outset by repatriating bodies so that the families could grieve with them, which we did by creating pathways so that families could be reunited here in Canada, which is what we are going to continue to do in calling for consequences, real tangible consequences for those perpetrators of the downing of PS 752. Mr. Speaker, we have listed the IRGC Quds Force. We have ensured that Iran is listed as a state that supports terrorism, and we will deliver more sanctions to stand up for human rights here and around the world.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, we need to talk about EI. What the government is doing by abandoning the temporary measures is a disaster for seasonal workers. At the very end of their working season, imagine Ottawa changes the rules of the game and raises the qualification threshold from 420 to 700 hours. This means that workers who are eligible for EI, or were 10 days ago, are now in a vacuum. No job, no benefits. The government may not think this is serious, but for the workers left behind, it is serious. It means no income until next summer. This is very serious. What is the government going to do for these people? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we're aware that the EI system is centuries old, and that's why we have taken efforts to build a system that works also to help seasonal workers as well. Even though these temporary measures are ending, benefits will continue to remain available. We're talking about millions to extend the pilot project until 2023. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, they're talking about a pilot project. That's good for eligible workers. But the problem is that seasonal workers do not qualify. They don't qualify because the government changed the rules by dropping the temporary measures. This means that the federal government is driving them into poverty. This is a threat to our seasonal industries and our regions. Will they put these temporary measures back in place, show some empathy for these seasonal measures until the EI reform is complete? This is what we have to do. The Honourable Minister. Thank you. The government understands that EI benefits must be more fair and better adapted to the needs of Canadian workers who are constantly evolving. We're going to improve the EI system through reform by the end of the year. Thank you.
For Burnaby South.
Nous avons manqué 30 millions.
We lost out on 30 million in revenues because there are tax loopholes. We need more money for health, more investment, but this government wants to protect the profits of the ultra-rich rather than protecting the interests of everyday Canadians. When will this government end the tax loopholes for the ultra-rich? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government has taken a commitment so that everyone pays their fair share. And we have taken measures by increasing permanently the income tax by 1.5% on companies and insurance companies and banks. We have introduced a 15% dividend, and we instaured a luxury tax on yachts and other boats. The honourable member for Burnaby South.
None of that changes the fact that our country has lost $30 billion in revenue because this Liberal government refuses to end tax holes for the super wealthy. Here's the reality. After 7 years of this Liberal government being in power, the effective tax rate for corporations is lower today. That is wrong. When will this government stop defending the profits of the super wealthy, stand up for working people, and put an end to the tax loopholes for the super wealthy?
Here. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, of course, there's expectation that Canadians and Canadian businesses pay their fair share. To that end, just on tax evasion alone, this government has invested over $1 billion to counter that. In addition, we have put forward, in response to the Panama Papers, which I know that the member yelling opposite is quite interested in, there's 900 Canadians that are identified and under observation, 160 audits underway, over 200 have been completed, and that work will continue, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Mr. Speaker, unlike the PM, the Leader of the Opposition puts Canadians first. Since his shining victory, the Conservative leader has been the voice of millions of Canadians asking the government to end unjust inflation. Day after day, he asks the coalition to show compassion for workers and parents by renouncing his plans to raise taxes, which will make life more expensive for everyone. Will the PM take the hand that the Leader of the Opposition has extended and stop the increase in tax? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have to clarify things. The first thing that our government did in 2015 was to lower taxes for most Canadians. And what did the Conservatives do? They voted against those tax decreases. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we'll continue to deliver for Canadians. The Conservatives can say what they want, but we're going to show what we're going to do with action. The honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable. The only promise they keep is to empty the pockets of Canadians. Yesterday, the Minister of the Environment said that Quebec would be spared the decision to triple the carbon tax on Canadians next year. Can the Prime Minister confirm that Quebecers will be fully spared from the carbon tax hike and that no Quebecers will pay more tax or see higher purchasing costs because of this decision? Will the carbon tax cost Quebecers more, yes or no? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for his question. He does not properly understand the carbon price system. In Quebec, they don't have a carbon tax. They have a cap and trade system. I know it's a little bit complicated, but I'd be happy to explain this difference to my colleague. My office could also organize a briefing if he wishes to receive one. Thank you.
Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, 51% of Canadians are struggling to afford food. 51%, that's over half the country. Wow. 7 years of this Liberal government, and that's their record, and yet they had the audacity to sit there, roll their eyes at us as we ask questions about their lack of action on inflation. And now, Mr. Speaker, they're going to raise taxes on Canadians by tripling the carbon tax on groceries, tripling it on home heating, tripling it on gas. Triple. Mr. Speaker, Canadians cannot afford this Liberal government any longer. Will the Liberals show some compassion and cancel their plans to triple the carbon tax?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In university, I did social sciences, but I did do some math. Calculus 101. It's actually called 103 in Quebec. And 3 times 3 equals 27, Mr. Speaker. So I'm not sure what they're talking about. Imagine if they had to do a budget for the entire country.
I'm having a hard time hearing the answer. I'm going to have to ask the minister to start from the top.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I was saying, I did social science in university. I did do some math. Calculus, it's 101. It's called 103. and 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, that's 27, Mr. Speaker. They can't even get this right. Imagine trying to do a federal budget for the entire country. Carbon taxing will go up by $15, Mr. Speaker. How they can get to 3 times 3 times 3, I simply don't understand. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Mr. Speaker, Jay told me that he had to cancel a family trip to see family because of the high cost of gas. Inflation and carbon tax increases are keeping families apart this Thanksgiving. But changing behavior is exactly what the Liberals want. They've said it. They continue to pretend that failed climate change plans are anything but another tax grab. Will the Liberal government cancel their plans to force British Columbia to triple taxes on gas, groceries, and home heating?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to reassure my honourable colleague we're having very cordial and productive conversation with British Columbia about putting a price on pollution. In fact, British Columbia is one of the first jurisdictions in North America to have done this, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue working collaboratively with BC on carbon pricing. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for Huron Bruce.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Because of this Liberal government's failed economic policies, the Canadian dream of owning your own home, putting your kids in sports, and taking a modest family vacation is impossible. At a time when Canadians need some help, what do these Liberals do? They triple the carbon tax. Will the Liberals cancel their plans to triple the tax on gas, groceries, and home heating and give hard-working Canadian families some hope?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the good news is we do have a plan, and all of us working together this week are going to be able to give hardworking Canadian families some real hope and some real support. That's because I am very hopeful that this week this House will vote on third reading on Bill C-30. That is the GST rebate. That will give nearly $500 to Canadian families. 11 million households will be helped. That is real hope. That is real support for Canadian families. I'm glad the Conservatives are on board with that. I hope now they'll support the housing payments and dental care.
The honourable member for Moose Jaw, Lake Centre, Lanigan.
Mr. Speaker, a veteran in my riding noticed that GST was being charged on top of the carbon tax on his power bill. This Liberal government plans to triple the carbon tax. Guess what? This will also triple the GST.
I'm going to interrupt the honourable member. If I can interrupt just for a second, we've got some translation problems. Ça fonctionne?
Does the interpretation work?
Order. Interpretation has started, so I'll let the honourable member start right from the top again, please.
Mr. Speaker, a veteran in my riding noticed that GST was being charged on top of the carbon tax on his power bill. This Liberal government plans to triple the carbon tax. Guess what? This will also triple the GST on a basic necessity. Life is getting too expensive for Canadians. Mr. Speaker, when will this government scrap their plans to triple the carbon tax and axe the tax on the carbon tax?
The Honourable Minister of Employment. Order. Listen to your whip. Thank you. She's wonderful. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, around the world, we are facing very difficult times. The member references a veteran who who I have no doubt is experiencing the global phenomenon that we're all dealing with. And I would say, Mr. Speaker, that this is not a sporting event. This is not an opportunity to yell and scream and hoot and holler. It's an opportunity to help people who are in need. I absolutely want to take those questions, Mr. Speaker.
I missed half of it. The government House Leader from the top, please.
It was such a good answer. I want to hear it again.
Mr. Speaker, we're ready to hear from real questions. We're ready to give real answers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lac Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, every time we question the federal government's inaction on Roxham Road, the government says it's negotiating with the Americans to modernize the Safe Third Country Agreement. It's been saying that for 5 years. The federal government even boasted about it in its 2019 election platform. We have the right to ask how the negotiations are going. Can the government give us the dates of its meeting with Washington on the Safe Third Country Agreement, and will it reveal its minutes? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, let's be clear. The closure of Roxham Road and the suspension of this agreement is not a solution. It doesn't stop the problem. As the member across knows full well, we have the longest militarized border in the world with the U.S. Roxham Road does seek ID from asylum seekers at this border and prevents. What we're going to do is to modernize this agreement, and that's what we're doing. The Honourable Member for Lac Saint-Jean. So Roxham Road is normal for them? Well, they just had to say so. Do you feel that the negotiations are progressing, Mr. Speaker? I don't think so. The Safe Third Country Agreement is 7 pages, not a free trade agreement. They've been telling us for 5 years that they're in talks, but what we're seeing is that they're making Roxham Road permanent. They're even going to inaugurate new facilities on November 1st. Can the minister give us any concrete proof of these discussions, or should we rely on this government's actions and conclude that there are no negotiations? The Honourable Minister of Heritage. Mr. Speaker, there are negotiations underway, but I would ask the Bloc Québécois to lower the tone a bit. Don't do petty politics on the backs of men and women and children who more than often are in very difficult situations, whether it's there or elsewhere. Because when we talk about immigration, we're talking about men and women and children who are trying to improve their conditions of life, and I would ask the Bloc to be careful about what they say. The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, every time we ask the government for the contracts it refuses to disclose for Roxham Road, it says that transparency is of paramount importance. It's Orwellian in reasoning, refusing to reveal contracts for the sake of transparency. We're not far from being told that war is peace. I am blinded by so much transparency, Mr. Speaker. Seriously, hiding public contracts is not transparency, it's opacity. Can the government stick to transparency and just reveal who they have entrusted with taxpayer money at Roxham Road? I think people have the right to know. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for this question. As it is not our practice to reveal confidential information, we do not want to violate the agreement we have with our suppliers. We are going to continue to work with ministers and organizations to meet their needs through fair contracts and open ones. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Saskatoon University.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians have been dealing with a lot of gaslighting from the other side of the chamber when it comes to EI tax hikes. And it's refreshing that the finance minister has finally admitted when she said, open quote, doubling the GST for 6 months is around $2.5 billion and the proposed EI freeze is around $2.5 billion, end quote. Given that she's finally admitting that EI is a tax, will she commit today to this government to stopping the planned tax hike on Canadian paychecks?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, the facts are clear. EI premiums are lower today than when the opposition leader oversaw them. In fact, they're the lowest they have been in decades. Mr. Speaker, come next January, the premium rate will be 25 cents lower than in 2015 under the opposition leader. On this side of the House, we believe in supporting Canadian workers and jobs.
Honourable Member for Saskatoon University.
Only Liberals would believe those lines. The Canadian families I'm hearing with are just hanging on by a thread. 4 out of 5 Canadians have changed their diet because of this Liberal government. Canadians can't afford any more Liberal tax grabs on Canadian paychecks. When will the minister stop printing money, stop the wasteful government spending that is fueling inflation, and stop the tripling of the taxes on Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
We can support dental care for kids with disabilities.
Absolutely.
Here's another idea. We can pass C-22 and lift hundreds of thousands of persons with disabilities out of poverty.
Absolutely.
Those are 2 really big concrete things that we can deliver together for Canadians.
Honourable Member for Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, Germany, UK, France, Sweden, Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, Ireland, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, and more have all cut fuel taxes or duties to help households deal with rising inflation. Instead of lowering taxes like our peers, this government wants to make energy more expensive. This Liberal government must know something the rest of the world doesn't. What it won't admit is that the carbon tax is inflationary because it gets passed through to everything. So will this government cancel its plans to hike taxes and finally give Canadians a break?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a riddle for you. What does the following list of states and countries have in common? Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Denmark, Korea, Norway, Mexico, South Africa, Sweden, UK, states like Quebec, BC, countries like China, and Alberta, Mr. Speaker, they all have a price on carbon. Alberta, in fact, has a price on carbon since 2004, Mr. Speaker. It's going to be almost 20 years. That's what's happening in Canada and around the world, Mr. Speaker. We're fighting climate change and we're helping Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, the Finance Minister downplays a 9% increase in the employment insurance tax. She says it's just no big deal, even though the Liberals collect billions more in EI premiums than they pay out to workers, just when inflation is at 40-year highs, and gas is $2.40 a litre in Vancouver. Hardworking Canadians are struggling to make ends meet. Do they just not care, or are they just incompetent? Will this Liberal government cancel their plan to raise taxes on Canadian paychecks?
The Honourable Minister, or Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what hardworking Canadians need is the security of knowing that when they retire, their pension will be there. What hardworking Canadians need is the security of knowing that our EI system is going to be there when someone loses their job. And that's why our government is standing by the Canada Pension Plan.
Okay.
We are standing by EI. And we know it would be the height of irresponsibility today, at a time of real global economic uncertainty, to slash and starve these essential programs Canadians need.
Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
The national inquiry and progress on ending violence against Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit people has been painfully slow. Yesterday, advocates and families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls raised serious concerns about how police have handled their cases. This includes inadequate communication. In fact, 11 of the 231 calls for justice from the inquiry relate to policing, but families keep reporting the same issues. When will this government act to implement the calls for justice on policing so families can finally have justice?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, coming off of the weekend where we marked the second National Truth and Reconciliation Day, I want to assure my colleague and all members in this House that we are united in taking concrete steps towards the path of reconciliation as it relates to public safety. We're accelerating the rollout of our First Nations and Indigenous policing program, where we've allocated nearly $1 billion. Very recently, we issued a joint statement with Alberta to bring back the Siksika Police Service. That is a concrete step towards reconciliation, and there's far more to do when it comes to providing culturally sensitive training, when it comes to empowering Indigenous communities to protect the members that live within those communities. This government will walk that path with Indigenous peoples. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Nunavut.
Okaktitiyi, colonial laws and policies remain deep-rooted. Death by suicide in Nunavut is 10 times higher than the rest of Canada. I have asked repeatedly this government to invest in Nunavut and Indigenous communities so they can thrive. But the government is still failing to deliver the mental health supports needed. Monday is International Mental Health Day, and Indigenous communities are watching. Okaktitiyi, will the government deliver by Indigenous for Indigenous mental health services?
The Honourable Minister for Northern Development.
Honourable, I thank the member for that very important question, and she's absolutely right. Losing one member to suicide is one too many. Our government is committed through the actions we are taking to do all things necessary to eradicate the horrible problem. We're working cooperatively with Inuit rights holders, with the government of Nunavut, with territorial governments, with all provinces to certainly eradicate the suicide crisis that is prevalent in the north.
Honourable Member for Willowdale.
Mr. Speaker, today marks 1,000 painful days since the Islamic Republic shot down flight PS-752, killing all 176 passengers, including 85 Canadians and permanent residents. Last week, Canada hosted the 41st Assembly of the Civil Aviation Organization in Montreal. Would the Minister of Transport share with members of this House what Canada is doing to hold Iran to account?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for his advocacy on holding Iran accountable for criminally shooting down flight PS-752. Our government made a solemn commitment to the families of the victims that we will pursue justice and accountability with vigor. Mr. Speaker, we've been utilizing and we will continue to utilize all legal and international mechanisms to achieve that goal. In the process, we are leading the world in advancing reforms to ensure that such tragedies never occur again. At ICAO, Canada is advancing action to implement the Safer Sky Initiative and reform the way tragedies are being investigated. Mr. Speaker, we owe it to the families that we remain focused on honouring their loved ones.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse. Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. It will hardly come as a surprise if I tell you the cost of living is so high now, more and more Canadians are living from paycheck to paycheck. Conservatives have put forward some concrete solutions to give people a bit of a break, like cancelling the planned January 1st tax increases and scrapping the carbon tax that this government wants to triple, Mr. Speaker. But the government's not paying attention. A little caring. Is that too much to ask for from this government and the Prime Minister of Canada, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government has a plan with very concrete solutions. We're doubling the GST tax credit, and the Conservatives now agree. Bravo. But there are still two things, and I would encourage Conservatives to support those two measures. And that is $500 to help low-income Canadians pay their rent, and it's for children and their dental care. That's the other thing. I think all Canadians agree that children should get that care.
Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
With grocery inflation at 40-year highs, half of Canadian households are struggling just to be able to feed themselves. Food bank shelves are nearly bare. Canadians are beyond just struggling. Most of them, many of them, are hanging on by a thread. And Canadians are tough. but they have a government that continues to punish them just while they're trying to get by. So will these Liberals cancel their plans to triple the taxes on gas, home heating, and groceries?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to read a few excerpts from the last report from the Parliamentary Budget Officer on carbon pricing in Canada, and I quote, "We project most households will see net gain, receiving more in rebates from federal carbon pricing under the government than the total amount they pay in federal fuel charge." And he adds, "For the vast majority of households in the backstop provinces, their rebate exceeds the carbon costs." Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Red Deer Mountain View.
Mr. Speaker, the cost of living is rising for all Canadians. There's an energy and a food security crisis in Europe, and it's coming to Canada. Germany is firing up their coal plants again so they can survive the winter. By tripling the carbon tax, the Prime Minister is tripling the taxes on home heating, gas, and groceries. These tax increases make Canada less competitive, driving investment and good jobs out of our country. Will the government end their triple tax plan for Canadians?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
$7 billion, Mr. Speaker. This was the cost to Canadians of the forest fire in Fort McMurray. $9 billion, that was the cost to Canadians from the floodings in BC last year. The cost of Fiona will likely be above anything we've seen in Canada. The cost of climate impacts in this country have gone up 400% in the last decades, Mr. Speaker. Canadians are paying the cost for that. What's the answer from the Conservative Party of Canada? Nothing, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we will fight climate change and we will support Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Essex.
I have a real question, Speaker, and I expect a real answer. In a recent poll, over 80% of Canadians said they are cutting back on spending because of the high cost of living. Over half said they can't keep up with the prices they're paying. Because of the Liberal mismanagement of our economy, people are hanging on by a financial thread. Our seniors are worried they won't be able to survive. Mr. Speaker, will the Liberal government do the right thing and cancel their plans to triple taxes on gas, groceries, and home heating?
The Honourable Minister for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, we won't take any lessons from a party opposite whose plan for seniors was to raise the age of retirement to 67. Mr. Speaker, we know Canadians are struggling, and that's precisely why we're doubling the GST credit. That means seniors will receive an extra $233 in their pockets. We also increased the old age security for seniors, Mr. Speaker. That's $800 more for full pensioner, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we'll continue to have the backs of Canadians and seniors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Temiskaming. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For Hockey Canada to have a dedicated fund to cover sexual assaults by players is unacceptable. But for them to need a second fund, as we learned yesterday, is downright disgusting. Everyone here agrees on that. The leadership and the board of directors have to resign. There has to be a clean sweep, but we saw today in committee they refuse to budge. Since this summer, it's scandal after scandal every other week. That's enough. We have to get to the bottom of this once and for all. When will the minister finally launch an independent investigation? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the stories we're hearing week after week about Hockey Canada are discouraging, to say the least. We get the feeling that the leadership are more interested in protecting their jobs than addressing the safety of the public, women, and the players. And that is why I suspended funding to Hockey Canada. And that will only be restored following an investigation by the sports investigator. The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Temiskaming. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would remind you that in June, the House unanimously passed our motion calling for an independent inquiry into Hockey Canada. Over 3 months later, it's the same directors with the same ways of defending sexual assault cases. It's the same toxic culture without so much as a hint of change to come. Hockey Canada doesn't have the trust of the players, especially female players, the trust of parents, or even the trust of this House. We're unanimous on that. So after over 3 months, why is the minister still refusing to launch an independent investigation into Hockey Canada's handling of sexual assault complaints? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to commend my colleagues here who've done outstanding work on the Heritage Committee. They've asked the right questions of Hockey Canada officials. The problem is that the voting members need to make sure there's a permanent change in leadership and in the culture at Hockey Canada, and that this culture of sexual violence be changed once and for all. Thank you.
Thornhill.
It's been 1,000 days since the IRGC terrorists killed 55 Canadians in the plane they shot down. 1,000 days for the families who still haven't been given the justice that they deserve. How is banning a group that has murdered Canadians, that brutalizes its own citizens, that oppresses minorities even a question for this government? How is allowing terrorists associated with this regime come to Canada, raise money, and intimidate Canadians okay? Will the minister have the guts to ban these terrorists today?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I want to thank the honourable member for the question. It has been 1,000 days, 1,000 long days for moms and dads and sisters and brothers to deal with the tragedy, the criminal action that happened by the downing of flight PS 752. This government has been taking action every day in that regard, and we are incredibly seized with constantly making sure that we listen to the families, we act internationally by international law, and we continue to get justice for the families. We will not stop until justice is done.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
We should have the strongest sanctions, but we don't. In 2018, every member of this Liberal cabinet voted to list the IRGC as a terrorist organization. Yesterday, they wouldn't reaffirm their position. What happened in between? The IRGC has blown up a plane, killing 50 Canadians. They have killed thousands of innocent people, including Massa Amini. The IRGC terrorists have organized, they have raised money, they have made Canada home. Mr. Speaker, I have one question. When did the government lose its way? When did it happen?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we believe in action, and we have been taking action for 1,000 days. Canada will never be a sanctuary for any terrorist from any country, including from Iran. Canada will always have a strong sanctions regime. That's why this week we announced 35 more sanctions on people who have committed crimes in Iran. That adds to the already 200 sanctions that were put on. That is why we have continually stood with the people of Iran as we name Iran as a sponsor of state terrorism. That's what it is, and we will continue to act for the people of Iran to ensure human rights.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Wood Mills.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians want real action. 4 years ago, this House voted to list the IRGC as a terrorist organization, yet this government chose not to do it. And then in 2020, the IRGC killed 55 Canadians and 30 permanent Canadian residents by shooting down their flight. And still, this government has not banned the IRGC from organizing in Canada and planning and raising money in Canada. When will the Liberals ban the IRGC from operating in Canada?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I share my colleague's sentiments, and I want to assure him and every member of Parliament that we are indeed taking concrete action to ensure that no one who would operate within the IRGC would have the capability of doing so in Canada. We're doing that by listing the IRGC Quds Force. We're doing that by sanctioning the members of the morality police. We're doing that by listing Iran as a state supporter of terrorism. Mr. Speaker, we have delivered consequences, and we will continue to explore and exhaust all options to hold those accountable and defend human rights here and around the world.
L'honorable député de Château.
The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Lacolle. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In August, the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change announced the 10 members of the Environment and Climate Change Youth Council. in my writing, I've already seen that young people have the determination, the teamwork, and the creativity to find bold solutions to today's environmental challenges. Can the minister tell us about the importance of young people being involved in climate action? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member for Châteauguay-Lacolle for her question and her tireless work on climate change. We will be welcoming the first members of the Youth Council on Thursday in Ottawa to find out what young people think and people who are passionate about the urgent need for climate action and finding solutions in their communities. Their competence and experience are an invaluable contribution and will help us create a better environment and a better future for all. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, where's the Prime Minister? The last time I saw him, he was on a video bungee jumping. Meanwhile, women, men, and children are being killed by Iran's Revolutionary Guard. And here the Prime Minister is allowing this same terrorist organization to continue to organize, plan, and fundraise right here in Canada. When will the Prime Minister have the guts to stop the IRGC from operating in Canada? I'd like to remind members that when you're asking or answering a question, you do not have the right to ask where someone is, to talk about whether they're here or not, because they may be all over the country working. Order! Order! A bit of respect for people who aren't here, but who are working outside the House, because all members have the right to work from somewhere else. So when they're not physically here, we do not call attention to that fact. Thank you. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I'm going to rather humbly suggest that we pack the rhetoric for a moment aside. One thing I heard very clearly from the families of victims of 752 was that we not make this a partisan issue. That is what they said out there today. That is what they're asking every day. They're asking for us to work constructively and creatively together. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to meet with family members, with the Prime Minister, with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, with the Minister of Transport, with the High Commissioner from London, and we will continue to work every day for those families because we care about them.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
One thing the families have made very clear is that they want the IRGC. Come on.
Liberal heckling.
From the top, the Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, one thing the families have made very clear is that they want to see the IRGC listed as a terrorist organization so that they no longer can operate here in Canada. Now, this could cease to be a partisan issue as soon as the government comes along with us and does the right thing by listing them. The fact is, families of the victims have been harassed by the IRGC even here on Canadian soil when they've spoken out. No family deserves to see their relatives murdered and receive harassment by foreign governments here on Canadian soil. So when will the government defend our sovereignty, stand with Canadians of all backgrounds, and shut down IRGC operations here in Canada?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This past June, I went to Northern Secondary School to the graduation, and I watched about 400 kids graduate from grade 12. One person wasn't there. Her name was Maya Zabai, and she was in grade 10 when she was killed by criminal action that downed a plane, Flight 752. Let's respect Maya's memory for a moment. Let's respect that family for a moment and all the families who lost their loved ones. We will continue to work with them as we do every measure, as we continue to impose sanctions, as we continue to list the appropriate bodies, as we make a real difference to get this work done.
The member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't doubt the member's sincerity, but you know how you honor the victims? By punishing the perpetrator. It's very simple. That member, the Prime Minister, the entire cabinet voted for my motion to list the IRGC as a terrorist entity. Now, in 2012, Conservatives listed the Quds Force and listed Iran as a state sponsor of terrorism. But since taking power, this Liberal government has done absolutely nothing. One of their own members acknowledged on CBC yesterday that the IRGC is still operating in Canada and called the government's actions too little too late. When will they end the inaction and shut down the IRGC in Canada?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Speaker, I'm grateful my colleague has set aside partisanship for a moment to honor the memories of Masa Amini, to set aside partisanship to honor the memories of those loved ones who were lost in the downing of PS 752. We need to work together to continue to deliver consequences for those who are responsible for transgressions of human rights, for those who are suppressing the rights of women and other vulnerable groups. We stand with them. We know they are marching. We know they are speaking with their voices. And this is a moment for us to do the work that is necessary to hold those accountable so that we can stand up for human rights here and around the world, and we will do that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mississauga, Streetsville.
The Philippines is among Canada's most vital trading partners in the Indo-Pacific region. We share strong people-to-people ties with the Philippines and have roughly 1 million Canadians from the Filipino diaspora who currently call Canada home. Could the Minister of International Trade, Export Promotion, Small Business and Economic Development inform the members of this House about Canada's recent investments and the success of our recent trip to the Philippines?
The Minister for International Trade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the member for Mississauga Streetsville for her question and indeed for her strong advocacy for the Filipino-Canadian community. I had a very productive trip to the Philippines, and we are seeing people-to-people ties and the trade and investment opportunities being created in both countries. I had the opportunity to see Canadian infrastructure and construction giant in WSP in the Manila Skyway that is built there. I visited Jollibee that now has 24 locations here in Canada with plans to expand. I met with terrific women entrepreneurs, and finally, just clean tech companies that are pitching to climate investors in
the Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
The Liberals' 1% vacancy tax doesn't come close to adequately addressing the financialization of housing. It lets corporate landlords off the hook who profit from rental evicting tenants and jacking up rent. Financial firms now hold up to 30% of Canada's rental housing stock. They don't care about families. Their goal is to line their own pockets. Yet the Liberals continue to finance them, knowing that they are a key driver of the housing affordability crisis. Will the Liberals stop financing these corporate landlords that are keeping families from having a roof over their heads?
The Honourable Minister for Housing.
Mr. Speaker, thank you to the Honourable Member for her important question on financialization. In addition to the 1% tax, we've introduced a 2-year ban on foreign ownership of Canadian residential real estate. But we're not stopping there. We've also launched a review of the tax treatment of real estate investment trusts, and through Budget 2022, we've launched a federal review of housing as an asset class. We're committed to making housing more affordable by doing our part, Mr. Speaker, to tackle the financialization of the housing sector. Merci beaucoup.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Right now, heroic women and men are risking their lives fighting for their rights and freedoms, demanding justice for Masa Gina Amini and for the victims of Flight PS 752. The government must use the Magnitsky Act to punish every guilty member of the murderous IRGC. The violence and intimidation in Canada must stop, and Canada must support bids for justice at the ICAO and ICC. It's been 1,000 days, Mr. Speaker. We need justice, we need action, and we need it now. When will this government stop with the half-symbolic measures and support the Iranian people?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the member for that question. I think it's an important question, and it is a sincere question. And I share with her the frustration. I share with her the anger and the impatience of victims of Flight 752. And I also share with her the expression of courage and tenacity of the women who are bravely on the streets and in the universities of Iran today. We will continue to work with her party, and with anyone else in this House who would like to find the best and most important ways and most effective ways of sanctioning individuals to show that there should be no impunity for any violation of human rights in Iran or anywhere in the world. Thank you.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. I understand there's a rappel au règlement, l'honorable député d'Outremont.
A point of order, the honourable member for Outremont. There has been consultation amongst the parties, and if you seek it, you will find that there is unanimous consent with regard to the following motion, which I will read in English.
Strongly condemn the killing of Gina Mahsa Amini at the hands of the so-called Iranian morality police, a direct consequence of the systemic and sustained harassment and repression of women by the Iranian government. That the House reiterates its support for women's rights as human rights. That the House salutes the courage of Iranian women and men protesting in over 100 cities across Iran, and stand in solidarity with all those demonstrating against the Iranian regime's appalling practices. That the House calls on the Iranian authorities to immediately cease its use of deadly force against peaceful protesters and refrain from committing further acts of violence against its own population. That the House reiterates its support of Canadian sanctions against Iran, and today, 1,000 days since Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 was shot down by the Iranian regime, the House stand united in solidarity with the families of the victims.
Okay, I think that's allowed a clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, I was just trying to follow the language on mine, and there was one line that may have been missed, and the government, House call on the government to immediately list the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist entity under the criminal code. Did the member mean to read that part of the motion? You're here.
I want to remind the honourable members that the generosity of the Speaker is there, but not to take advantage.